to the podcast. We talk about all the things that are hidden in the shadows. Welcome to the podcast. We talk about all things hidden in the shadows. This is Isaac.
And this is Megan.
And I'll get that right one of these days. Anyway, it's been some time. That's probably why I messed it up.
Yeah.
Probably wondering where the hell we've been. Or not wondering. Because you probably assume, they got shit going on.
Yeah, pretty much. I don't know. It's been a weird... What is this month that's... Like, it was a weird
May.
April and May. I don't know. Every year around this time, it is weird. It's like we go through this big transition into summer, even though you really don't like summer.
No. Don't like it one bit.
I'm okay with like just a little bit of summer, but if I could just immediately transition into fall, I'd be happy. But I don't like the humidity. It puts me in a bad mood. I hate the having to just commit to sweating, like just feeling wet. I just don't like that. I don't like it.
It's bad terminology, but
I almost said moist.
Yeah, some of the ears went. Ugh, fuck.
I was one of those people that can't stand the word moist. Don't like it. Anyways,
so we are going to have more episodes come out this next couple of weeks.
Yeah, so be prepared. It's like feast or famine over here, I guess.
Yeah. And I'll be listening to this episode today, which is all about Mount Shasta, part 1, because we had to do 2 parts. But also look later this week for Julie's interview episode, which, if you're wondering, Julie, if you didn't listen to our last episode, Julie is the only other person I have met so far, besides me and Megan, who has innate ability to do what me and Megan do, which is imprison dark entities, demons, whatever. And she is on our level when it comes to taking stuff out. So you hear the interview we do with her and discuss how her abilities came to her, how she is now, and how she sees and how she does what she does. That's not exactly like me or like Megan, but is on almost the same level when it comes to being a shadow walker per se.
Yes.
So look forward to that episode.
I think her backstory is interesting because I think it's super interesting when you go through these people that have any kind of abilities, their backstory, because the paranormal seem to be prevalent like growing up, you know?
Well, I mean, I know I set out when I first started our abilities. I think I said this a long time ago. I want to find more people like us. Mm-hmm. Not psychic mediums. Granted, there's a dime a dozen, but I'm talking about people who have an ability like ours.
Yeah.
But so far, I've only found one. Supposedly, there's supposed to be more. So.
Yes.
But we're not here to talk about that. You'll listen to that on that bonus episode. So today we're talking about Mount Shasta.
Mount Shasta. So let me explain why, because I was the one basically that said I wanted to cover Mount Shasta. And Mount Shasta to me is very similar to a lot of those places that we've covered, like the Bridgewater Triangle, and those type of places where it's like Skinwalker Ranch, where there's so much going on paranormally, and the energy is just so intense. Even though I think Mount Shasta is more on the positive end than, like Bridgewater Triangle kind of has like a mix of both, and then Skinwalker Ranch is kind of leaning more on like negative stuff. But Mount Shasta has a lot of really interesting paranormal things happening. And then the history itself is interesting because Mount Shasta was very, very important to the indigenous people in the area. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And we're going to split it up into 2 parts, just like we did with like Bridgewater Triangle, just because there's so much. There is so much to go in detail. And part 1 is kind of like the backstories, the claims, the legends, like what is going on there and why is it going on. And then the second part is more of experience encounter stories, because I talked to a couple people that had experiences there. And then we'll also pose our theories on the location, because I don't know. I think it's interesting once we start kind of breaking down the legends and lores.
Yeah.
So I thought it would be interesting to kind of talk about first, just to give you a little brief history, a little brief introduction to what Mount Shasta is, because I didn't even know really where it was and like what it was. So Mount Shasta is potentially an active volcano located at the southern end of the Cascade Range in Siskiyou County, California. I keep butchering that. I'm so sorry if I am not saying it right and you're from there. It has a height of 14,179 feet, which is approximately 4,322 meters. It's the second highest peak in the Cascades and the fifth highest mountain in California. But yeah, so the history is pretty interesting, I thought. So essentially, this volcano has been dormant for a long time. It hasn't erupted for a lot of years. And prehistory, this was before European contact. 9,000 years ago, evidence suggests that Native American population is in the greater Shasta region. 2,500 to 600 BCE, possible evidence of a native camp on the north side of Mount Shasta. That was before like settlers started coming over there. So indigenous people were in that area for a while. 1800s, there was a guy named Peter Sking Ogden who explored the area and named the mountain after the local Shastan people. Early 1820s, Euro-American settlers arrived in the area, and at the time, the Shasta, the Okawanchu, the Modoc, the Achamawi, the Asugwi, the Karut, the Kalmoth, the Wintu, and the Yana tribes also resided near the mountains. In 1854, there was a guy named Ellis Pierce who became the first documented person to reach the summit of Mount Shasta. So he was the first documented person to get up there, which is important because he was the first person to scale the entire mountain, essentially, to figure out what's kind of going on. Anyways, and then it was the 1860s and 1870s that Mount Shasta started to gain scientific recognition for its just insane stuff. And what's interesting is kind of the geological history behind the mountain itself, or the volcano itself. So the earliest volcanic activity began in the area that would become Mount Shasta 593,000 years ago. Sorry, I had an issue saying that.
Can't read numbers.
But eruptions occur on an average of every 800 years according to the last 10,000 years. The frequent average of every 600 years in the last 4,500 years. So again, a long time that it doesn't erupt. The most recent eruption, like I said, estimated at 32 years ago. And then obviously Mount Shasta, even though it's dormant, it's still monitored. But here are some of the kind of legends, and we'll go more in depth as we go into the episode. But when it comes to the hollow earth theory, Mount Shasta is pretty much where it's at, according to what people believe. There is a legend that apparently Mount Shasta holds that the Lemurians, which that's another crazy thing to go into. The Lemurians see
that story. Mm-hmm. I know very well. Well, amongst any things about it, but looking into the Atlanteans and all that stuff from the past and stuff. Now, the whole story of the Atlanteans was told to Plato when he visited Egypt, and it was told to him by I forget who exactly said, some scholars or priests or something. Anyway, supposedly the story of the Atlanteans and Lemurians ever 100,000, maybe million years ago, that they were the top civilizations of their time. Granted, the Atlanteans being bigger or more high-tech. Anyway, Lemurians are kind of second place. So there was a war between Lemurians and the Atlanteans that essentially ended in nuclear war, which they kind of use as explanation for why there's so much nuclear material in the ground versus than we ever put there. Remember, I don't know if you ever knew about this, but in the 60s, people used to dig up and mine for uranium versus gold, because they consider uranium gold if you sell it. Yeah. Anyway. But there's nuclear material everywhere around the world, just on a high level to kill everyone. It's buried very deep. So, nuclear war. Anyway. The Atlanteans' city sunk into the sea. The old story, how it goes. And the Lemurians fled from where they were and traveled as far as they could, which ended up in around Mount Shasta.
Mount Shasta, yeah.
Where you say Shasta like it's a soda.
Shasta?
Yeah.
Why? How do you say it?
Shasta. Sha, not sha. Tomato. Anyway.
Okay.
You know that drink, Shasta?
No.
No, it's probably before your time. Never mind. I remember that from when I was little. But no, they fled into the Mount Shasta, into the mountain, into the hollow tunnels that got them deep into underground. They became an underground civilization deep under there. And used the mountain's natural energy sources to power their machines, their weapons, whatever they had, still in there. And that's why you see, randomly, alien ships fly in and out of the mountain area. Because that's them. Supposedly. And then that Pierce guy have something to do with it afterwards?
Get to that in a second.
Oh, okay.
But another thing apparently that happens on Mount Shasta is that people have spiritual like visions or spiritual interaction with ascendant masters and interdimensional beings.
It has portals, I tell you, portals.
Well, yeah. I mean, a lot of Mount Shasta is viewed as like a vortex or portal to other dimensions. I don't know why I don't like that word, ascendant masters. Essentially, that's the definition of ascendant masters, because I didn't even know, was, I mean, I've heard like spiritual people talk about it on like TikTok and stuff, but ascendant
terminology.
But assistant master is basically somebody that has reached the highest level of human consciousness and is on the other side.
One dimension up. Ooh.
Yeah. Apparently, like you said, UFO sightings. There's even been Bigfoot sightings because it is part of a national forest as well, which we all know weird stuff happens around national forest. I mean, we've covered so many places that's occurred. Missing 411 cases also is known
let's go with the
that.
Tunnels.
Yeah. Is known for that. And like I said, there's even Native American specific legends. Like there's one that obviously all of the tribes pretty much considered Mount Shasta a sacred place, but the Kalamoth people have stories of a spirit chief named Skell who resides on the mountain, supposedly. So one thing that I wanted to know too was like where, because obviously it's a big area. The mountain itself is huge. The forest around it is huge. The area leading up to the mountain is huge. Like, where are the places that specifically people encounter things? And one spot, and this was actually like documented, like people were talking about these spots in particular, is the summit, the hot springs that are around there, and then the lava bed, and obviously the caves. So that's, to me, is interesting. And then around Mount Shasta is McCloud Falls, Castle Lake. And another thing that's interesting with the whole Lemurian and Ascendant Masters and stuff like that is there was 3 groups that pretty much flocked to Mount Shasta. So there is this group called the I Am, right? And that started in the 1930s. So this was founded by Guy W. Ballard. This movement claimed he channeled a being called Saint Germain, which is supposedly one of the Ascendant Masters, who revealed secrets about a lost civilization, Lemuria, beneath Mount Shasta. The group believed these Lemurians possessed advanced technology and were currently helping humanity. Apparently, though, the movement faced controversy due to financial practices and accusations of being a cult.
That's right, that guy.
Yeah. And if you look at him, like I'm telling you from a psychic perspective, dude is not right. He's got the same energy to me as there's that one pastor that everybody says is like freaks people out. I forgot it. You know who I'm talking about? The one with the buggy eyes?
Crazy eyes.
Yeah. I mean, if you don't get vibes from that guy.
I know his face. I always forget his name.
Yeah, that guy. That's who he reminds me of, like, energy wise. So, I mean, it makes sense, kind of the accusations. But then there was another group called the Summit Lighthouse, which was from the 1950s to present. This group emerged from the IM activity after a split. They continued to believe in the existence of ascended masters living within Mount Shasta and the teachings of Saint Germain. The group maintains a lower profile than the IM activity, but still attracts followers interested in their belief.
Saint Germain is supposed to be a vampire.
Is he?
I think we talked about this a long time ago, like almost 2 years ago. He was supposedly an immortal. When we talked about vampires, I brought him up because he was supposedly a vampire of the Europe era. Right? He knew things about histories that most people didn't know.
Dang.
Like he's lived like thousands of years or something like that. Someone saw him like drain the blood out of a girl and jump out the window and then disappeared.
What?
Yeah. So I was like, what? You're talking about Saint Germain? That guy is supposed to be immortal. Suspected vampire.
Like, from my perspective, just me researching and me looking into it, funny enough, I don't know. Mount Shasta is weird because you know how I always talk about when I research, I go to these places, a remote view, it's like almost automatic. I didn't do that with Mount Shasta. There's like little specific points that I would go to if I were to go to Mount Shasta, but like there wasn't anything. And every time I read the stuff about ascendant masters, and especially the Saint Germain, I don't believe that. I just don't believe it. And I don't know why. Like, it's not anything too far-fetched for me to believe. You know, and that's the thing, is I believe people can go on, because, you know, Native American and, you know, indigenous tribes talk about it all the time, that, you know, they would send their shamans and healers and stuff like that off, and they would go have these, like, journeys of seeing things. And funny enough, when I first started doing the whole spiritual awakening stuff and going into my abilities, I had a dream that I was climbing the side of a mountain, and there was a lady helping me up with like solid blue eyes, but like no pupil. It was just like blue eyes. Almost looked like kind of like an oracle lady. And I have the picture saved because I was like, I have to save this. But she was an old lady and she was helping me up, and it was in the middle of this cave. So, but I believe in that kind of stuff. Like, you can have different things, you know, happen to you, but I don't know if I believe the ascendant masters stuff. I don't know. It's weird. Oh, yeah, there's a drink called Shasta. Anyways, there was another group that also formed in the 1990s called Love is One. This group recently in the news because they had discovery of a mummified leader. Has been labeled a cult by some. Apparently, they have a presence near Mount Shasta and hold some unconventional beliefs. Apparently, Ballard, the first guy that I am, claimed to have a spiritual awakening while hiking Mount Shasta, which again isn't necessarily far off from people that go hiking there. Actual experiences like on Reddit and Facebook posts and stuff like that, they talk about that. They see things, they experience things. It's even just like a feeling of energy and stuff like that. So, but like I said, he was contacted by mysterious figure.
California, right?
California, yeah. Cascade or Mountain Range, yeah.
I always thought, like, what would happen if we go there?
To be honest with you, if we go there, I think like the communication would be pretty cool. But see, that's the thing, is people don't really go there to like paranormal investigate. And I've looked and I've tried to see if there's any like demonic activity or crazy stuff. There really isn't. It's just almost like weird stuff that happens, like glitches.
Aliens.
Yeah, there's aliens like seeing, and that's the thing, is there is a lot of skeptics in terms of saying that like the alien stuff and all of that, like they believe that it is an important spot for Native Americans and stuff like that, but all the other stuff is not true. Like the Lemurians, I don't know why I say that weird too. Lemurians.
Lemurians over there.
Oh my gosh. But some of the arguments against like the UFOs is just that people don't understand cloud formation, because apparently on Mount Shasta there is unusual cloud formations called lenticular clouds, which form around mountains due to wind and moisture, and are a common sight near Mount Shasta. And they do look saucer-like in shape, and some skeptics believe that is what the whole UFO things that people are seeing are. And then obviously, you know, one of the main things that they say is lights in the sky. And people say, well, that's just anything from airplanes to flares to misidentified natural phenomena. So that's the kind of arguments against the UFOs. But like, so one story that I read that I thought was bizarre, because I always talk about time warps. I think time warps are crazy. And I think this particular story kind of, and this is just an overview of it, I'll go more in depth in part 2, but like this was a time warp, and it was shared originally by a YouTuber. I think he has a podcast as well. It's called What Lurks Beneath. And he told the story of this guy who went hiking on Mount Shasta, and he was crossing into a meadow. And he had hiked there before. He went through the meadow before. It was like nothing, whatever, right? So he starts hiking, and he notices a cabin and a young girl and like a dad. And he was just thinking, oh, well, maybe somebody, you know, whatever, you know, like not thinking too much of it, just trying to walk through the meadow, get to the other side. And then he notices the girl kind of is playing with her doll and goes like, right? And notices him. And then he kind of notices these two people, and these two people are dressed like they're from the 1800s. And again, in his head, he's going, oh, well, you know, it might just be maybe a reenactment that they're doing or something like that. Whatever, you know, like whatever. And so he continues to walk, and, you know, those two people are looking at him like absolutely terrified, like what is going on? Because he obviously looks modern day. And he notices like something is not right. And he was like, wait a second, these people, like, they genuinely look like they're from the 1800s. And he notices that the girl starts freaking out. The girl goes behind the dad and hiding behind the dad, like scared. And then the dad realizes, like, he starts getting scared. And apparently there was a black bear that was coming from behind this guy, going towards them. And so when he notices it, he starts running, like sprinting to the other side. And then obviously the girl and the dad, you know, run too. And he said when he ran to the other side, like to the entrance of the wooded area, he turns around and the black bear isn't chasing him anymore. The cabin is gone, and the dad and the girl are completely gone. And it's just the regular meadow. So apparently so he's like, I don't know what that was. Is that a time warp? Could you imagine that though? What would you do? Could you imagine like?
Well, one, I would think, why is there Amish people out here?
Yeah. Yeah, I guess that's probably one reason, probably too, why he maybe didn't bat an eye at it at first, is because there's people that, you know, like dress like from the 1800s and still live that way. And so, but yeah, so he freaked out on that. And then there's some more other kind of crazy stories, but I'll leave that for part 2. But another thing that I wanted to talk about, because I did not know this, and I did not know that these places were considered that. So there are ley lines that obviously intersect and interconnect at Mount Shasta. So we all know kind of ley lines. They're energetic points that connect other places with have high energy together, right? But what I didn't know is that there's different chakras of the earth, specific points of like energy. And the earth chakra, or the root chakra, earth root chakra, sorry, is I don't know why I broke it up like that, is Mount Shasta. And then that's that is one of the reasons why a lot of people flock there for deep meditative states, to physical and emotional healing and stuff like that. The mountain is also super big for like retreats, spiritual gathering, individual like pilgrimages, and is known for having raw primal energy that it is. And a lot of the native tribe, or specifically the native tribes, they actually go there and still have rituals there. So you got to think we're still, even to this day, kind of pumping energy back into the mountain. Now, whether or not, there's actual hollow earth, or there is actual, I think it's the city that the Lemurians are called Teleos, I think.
What?
Teleos. Teleos is what they call it. Or I think it's even been called Moo.
Moo, like a cow? Moo?
Yeah. But apparently, the interesting things about Lemurians, though, is apparently they had advanced psychic abilities, like telepathy and stuff like that. So, I don't know. It's kind of interesting. But I also thought it was kind of interesting to also dive a little bit into, or let you guys know what the other chakras are, because I didn't know this. So the sacral chakra of the earth is Lake Titicaca. Would you stop?
Sorry. Ever since I was a kid, it always made me laugh.
Lake Titicaca in Peru and Bolivia. Someone's laughing right now. There's a solar plexus chakra in Kata Tuta, Australia. Heart chakra is Glastonbury and Shaftesbury, England. The throat chakra is the Great Pyramid of Giza, Egypt, Mount Sinai, and the Mount of Olives in Jerusalem. Third eye chakra is the Aeon Activation Center. Crown chakra is Tibet. Yeah.
Interesting.
So I thought that was interesting. So obviously the root chakra, that is like grounding and stuff. And it's kind of ironic that it's a volcano and just filled with like trees and nature and stuff like that. Because they always say like when you need to ground or whatever, fix your root chakra and stuff like that, get out in nature and ground. And it's kind of interesting that that's what that is. But apparently there is I don't really know too much about the energetic like portals and ley lines and stuff like that, but apparently there is a masculine and feminine energy that intersects right at the mountain. So interesting. So I think other than the paranormal claims, it is a spiritual place, and I think it would be interesting just to go and experience that. But I did ask, because I was curious, like, what are the paranormal claims in terms of spirits? Were there any like people that died there? So apparently people do see apparitions, sightings of ghosts and spirits on the mountains, particularly near caves, hot springs, or again like the summit, which I find interesting. A lot of people say they have unexplained feelings, strange or powerful presence, especially on the peaks and in specific areas around the mountain. And then, of course, there's electronic anomalies, malfunctioning, or behaving strangely on the mountain.
The geomagnetic energy that's there is probably overpulsating.
Yeah.
That's why you can feel the energy in the ground.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I thought that was interesting. I thought it was an interesting concept. And like I said, not a lot of paranormal investigators. Obviously, it's kind of hard when it's such a spiritual place to kind of go there and kind of investigate.
It's got to be something.
What do you think about Lemurians? Do you think Lemurians, that could be a thing?
I don't know.
Because see, that's a thing that gets brought up sometimes in past lives, right? Like you see it on TikTok and you see it being talked about in like the spiritual stuff. Certain people came from Atlantis. Some people have past lives as a Lemurian. Like I've even been told that. And I don't even know what to think of that. Like, I've been told. I remember I was told by a psychic one time that one of my original like past lives was as a Lemurian.
The basis of the whole Atlanteans or Atlantis together was told as a story. Right? There was no actual place where it was told. Supposedly, is the kingdom of Poseidon. Or sorry, not kingdom of Poseidon. Poseidon's favorite city. Atlantis was kind of like his kingdom, where his his demigod children lived, rulers of them, of Atlantis. Far more technically advanced than anybody else. But greed of wanting to conquer the world with their technology and weaponry and fighting skills would led to their downfall. Because Zeus didn't want, Zeus didn't want essentially this Atlantis to basically conquer the world and take over the entire planet. So Poseidon basically stepped in and said, "Nope, this ain't happening." And he wiped them all out. Yeah. And then the city fell into the sea. So that's how the story goes. Then, if you take it from texts from, apparently it's a story in Hinduism. There's a Hindu tablet talking about a city swallowed by the sea, at war with its fellow land brethren, which people dictate as Atlantis and Lemuria. That's where Lemuria comes from, the whole idea. And that continent that would have been Lemuria or Atlantis was somewhere off the coast of California, west. So between Australia and California, and that area, that open sea area, supposedly. That's why.
Oh, yeah. No, yeah.
So Lemurians didn't have to travel far to get to California, the continent of the United States, which it wasn't at the time, and then go into Mount Shasta.
That's so weird.
Yeah.
So weird to think about.
Is there any history truth? We don't know.
That's like my dad. Like, I think when you ask him about aliens, and I've talked about him on here before, he's very, very skeptic, but he used to have dreams about aliens. I don't know if I ever told you that. And one of the things that he like firmly believes is that aliens aren't out in the galaxy. They're inside of the Earth.
Hollow Earth stuff.
Yeah. He's actually really big on that. And I was like, what?
Like we talked about in the Hollow Earth episode, I don't believe the Earth is hollow. I believe it has cavernous areas that could be bigger than cities. Mm-hmm. Right? Almost like states. Like like states on our land is that big enough areas that are underneath Earth where an entire city or civilizations could live. Yeah, that makes sense. But hollow? No. Where all the lava from volcanoes come from then?
Yeah, that's true.
Unless there's pockets of that across the entire planet.
Well, it
could be vice versa. We will have a hollow Earth, pockets of magma essentially around, which make dangerous to travel through if you have a hollow planet. But hollow Earth, in the sense of that, it's there's sky, there's weather, right? Kind of like how it's depicted in King Kong or Godzilla vs. Kong. I don't think so. I think maybe the technology of whoever's down there probably generated an artificial atmosphere.
Well, here's the thing. Yeah. So this is interesting. So, again, the whole idea of the Lemurians is just kind of like a belief. Kind of, it's not like obviously anything concrete, but apparently, like I said before, they had psychic and supernatural abilities, and then they are an advanced being. So some of the things that they are typically, I guess, talked about to kind of have is telepathy and heightened intuition. So Lemurians are believed to have advanced how would you say that?
Telepathy?
Telepathy and emphatic abilities, allowing them to communicate mind to mind and sense the thought and emotions of others. Apparently, levitation and anti-gravity. Some stories of Lemurians suggest that they could harness unknown forces to levitate objects or even their own bodies. Healing abilities. They are also depicted as having advanced healing, potentially using energy or conscious-based techniques. Apparently, they have longevity and biological regeneration. So they can heal. They have ability to heal injuries and reverse aging to a degree. Connection to the elements, understanding control over the classic elements of earth, air, and fire. And then obviously their advanced consciousness and connection to the divine is greater than like us. And it's kind of interesting because some of those, thingies, some of those abilities are also practiced in Native American cultures. So, I don't know. I don't know. Could you imagine if Lemurians were here first and they taught natives how to... Because we'll just say it as Native American practices and consciousness and stuff like that is higher. I think indigenous people.
There's always stories about star people or sky people coming down from the stars, teaching them things. So,
what if they were Lemurians? I don't know. That's crazy, right? When you think about it.
It's funny how they survived and Atlanteans didn't. But then again, they probably knew to hide. Kind of like a bunker within the mountain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's kind of interesting.
Which I remember people theorized that's what... It wasn't essentially asteroid impact that destroyed the dinosaurs, right? But most likely it was. Mm-hmm. But talking about how... It's how... You're dating yourself, essentially, with the whole idea of it, Lemurians and Atlanteans, that they were around the same time as dinosaurs, and their nuclear war led to this destruction of the planet first time around. And then civilization had to evolve back from where it was. At least that was a theory, anyway. Yeah.
And just for reference, I'm not saying that the Lemurians did teach natives their ways and different things on how to do. I'm just saying that's an interesting concept if that were plausible. Just stating that. So
yeah.
People don't actually think that I think that, but it's just a theory. Interesting kind of concept to think about.
Well, the interesting fact about Mount Shasta is, y'all need to try around the area, but it actually has some of the oldest petroglyphs in United States history, dating back thousands and thousands of years.
Really?
Yeah, that's what is interesting about the whole idea. But what are those petroglyphs made by Native American people, or have been there that long, or some other civilization that landed there kind of put them there? But then again, that would be primitive for them. So at the time, anyway. Yeah. But there was a guy that I kept looking up. I kept finding that he supposedly found, speaking of Lemuria, found the ancient remnants of it inside Mount Shasta.
Yeah, so there's a guy. His name is J.C. Brown. So according to legend, J.C. Brown, he was a British prospector who discovered a lost underground city beneath Mount Shasta in 1904.
Yeah, because he was supposed to go looking for gold.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So he had been hired by his mining company, which was Lord Cawdray Mining Company of England, to prospect, like you said, for gold. And he discovered a cave which sloped downward for 11 miles, which is essentially 18 kilometers. In the cave, he found an underground village that had gold, shields, mummies, and a being up to 10 feet tall. He told his story 30 years later to this guy named John C. Root, who proceeded to gather an exploration team in Stockton, California. There was about 80 people who joined the team, but on the day that the team was getting ready to set out, Brown did not show up, and Brown was never heard from again.
Yeah, that's where people suspect that he either was captured by the Lemurians, or government captured him, or he was all full of shit, and he was like, "Oh fuck, they're gonna know I'm lying," and he basically disappeared.
Ugh, that's scary. Sometimes I wonder if people think that happens to us when we
disappear for fear the government has us.
Yeah, no. Somebody messaged us one time and was like, "Hey, just checking if you're okay, or if the government captured you. Did you guys look into something you weren't supposed to?" Like.
Yeah, but the J.C. Brown guy, he said he found, like you said, weapons, shields, stuff. Like he even found a praying room or something, like a chamber meant for praying and stuff like that. At least his description of it. But yeah, and then that supposedly that find the skeleton of remains of a giants and stuff like that. So Lemurians, people suspect them will be the same size, but no, they might have been giants, like 9 to 10 feet tall.
And then going back to the indigenous tribes, there was a specific legend which I find interesting. It was by the Klamath people, but they believe that Mount Shasta is inhabited by a spirit chief called Skell, which I don't know why this story, like when I was reading it, resonated a lot with me, like more so than seeing like the Ascended Masters like Saint Germain. But apparently he descended from heaven to the mountain's summit. Skell fought with the spirit of the below world, which his name was, I believe, Lao. It's spelled Llao, who resided at Mount Mazama by throwing hot rocks and lava, representing the volcanic eruptions at both mountains. There was a writer named Joaquin Miller who recorded various related legends in the 1870s. So that's another interesting concept. So you have a lot of weird stuff kind of happening. Is it just purely a spiritual place, or is there more to it? Is there more paranormal stuff happening? And here's the thing. Okay, so with that amount of energy and that amount of like portal vortex type of stuff going on, do spirits in the surrounding area automatically flock to Mount Shasta? If that's the case, would there be heightened activity, like with spirits and stuff? But then, and two, if it's a super positive, does it remain positive? Is it neutral? Because you don't really hear, like I said, about demonic activity. But with places with that much power, would demonic beings or malicious spirits
if it's
go
too
there?
positive amount of energy, it's going to repel them.
Yeah.
They're not going to want to go around near it.
And then I think, too, maybe the stuff that the indigenous people do kind of prevent that as well, I would think.
Yeah.
Because obviously they're doing positive rituals to I would suggest to amplify the positive energy. So it's just interesting. It's an interesting place. I don't think I've ever been to a place that's just like pure positive pumping of energy.
Because they were consistently hunting darkness.
Yeah, so going someplace like that, I know it would be interesting because there was people that said like it was like they had a block on their third eye. They went there and it was like a total just like ripping of whatever blocks or whatever they had on their third eye. So.
Yeah. Well, I think that wraps us up here.
Yes. And part 2 is going to be a lot of other cool things. We're going to talk about a little bit of the missing 411 and theories on that. Our specific theories on Mount Shasta in general. And then, like I said, I have some stories that were told to me by people, and then some Reddit stories as well where I talked to the people and I asked questions about what Mount Shasta actually feels like, because it is one of those places that I was reading different comments on YouTube videos and stuff like that. Like you go there and you definitely feel the weight of like Mount Shasta. Like it's one of those spots that you see and you're just like, whoa.
Yes. So look forward to those episodes, future episodes and more. Besides a recap, part 2 Mount Shasta will be out next week. We're having Julie's episode this week, along with the episode you're listening to right now. Next week's bonus episode, I actually have Tommy from Let's Get Freaky Podcast, because I've been on his 5 times.
Dang.
Going on 5 times, yeah. I got one more time with him, it'll be 5 times. 4 times so far I've been on this type of podcast, but now he has his pencil in for a 5th time. Anyway. So I thought I'd at least, balance out the numbers, having him on my podcast for at least once.
Yeah.
So, but we talk about his paranormal stuff, how his experience, talk about things in the paranormal community, things he's interviewed, things as a podcast.
Things he's interviewed?
People. He's interviewed, and some of the things that we talk about amongst being a paranormal podcaster and stuff like that. So, look forward to that bonus episode next week. As always, guys, you can catch our social medias at Hidden in the Shadows Podcast on Instagram, Hidden in the Shaw 6 on X, Hidden in the Shadows Podcast 2 on TikTok, or links to all our social media, and always you can listen to us at hiddenshadowspodcast.com. And as always, we'll catch your weirdos in the next one.
Yes.